How's everybody doing today? This is Patrick Thompson with Redirection Direct, and I'm joined today with somebody who is beyond normal. Okay, it's crazy what this man has accomplished in his lifetime. How old are you?
I'll be 40 in September.
Barely 40 years old. Now let me just give you a little bit of history where I know this gentleman from. So we met at CrossFit. I know, right? CrossFit. And he was visiting. And so in our discussion, by the way, his name is Jonathan Oliver. Jonathan, how you doing, man?
Yes, call me J.O.
All right, J.O.
J.O.
And so he was at CrossFit, the box. He was visiting just for like a week. And just in a quick conversation, man, he said a few things, bing, 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 caught my attention. Number one, hey, what you doing here? Well, he was speaking at a school to some kids, and that was what he was doing, was traveling around and being a speaker. I was like, got me right there, Toastmasters, okay. I was thinking about something like that. Then he said, yeah, I'm looking at maybe possibly moving to Tulsa from Texas. Boom, I moved from Texas. Then the last part is kind of like, because my wife is a cardiologist and she's looking for a job. It's like, oh, okay. So, but we've stayed in contact through social media, and he has developed some things over the last couple of years that have totally intrigued me. I'll share one of the stories, pretty funny, later on, hopefully if I remember. But let's get started. Let's jump right into this, man. So, like I said, when I met you, you were speaking around the country at different schools. So talk to the people a little bit about what your career was at that time, what you were doing.
So it's great, Patrick, that we even having this conversation because we actually come up on a 20-year anniversary on the organization I was speaking for at the time.
Okay,
so,
cool.
I used to speak for Rachel's Challenge, and their organization, unfortunately, was caused by a tragedy. Their daughter, Rachel Joy Scott, was the first person killed in a Columbine shooting on April 20th, 1999.
Yeah.
From that tragedy, her family started this amazing organization called Rachel's Challenge, where they travel. First off, in El Paso was their first destination. We spoke to 42 schools in less than a week. But throughout the entire world, speaking about kindness, compassion, and character development from pre-K to corporate America. At the time, I was their keynote speaker, trainer, coach, and I loved it because I got a chance to go from pre-K to corporate America, superintendents, principals, community. So not only did I go to Tulsa, I spoke at the school in Tulsa, spoke to the principals, superintendent, the student, the parents, and the community as a whole. So before any of the speakers would leave an area, we had truly left our thumbprint there for us a message of kindness and compassion with Rachel's Challenge. And that's what I was doing for 6 years, 250 days out of the year. I was training planes and automobiles, but I loved it. You know, even if I was in a Prius, I still loved it. I almost 6'4", I still loved it.
Yeah.
Just because being in front of, as early as kindergarten, kids just understanding the simpleness of looking for the best in others and eliminating prejudice, choosing to understand the power of your words, connecting with your loved ones and letting them know how much they mean to you. This message, unfortunately, where we are in the world today, is still 100% relevant. And I still sometimes tug with my heart. I just talked to Daryl Scott about a year ago. He was like, hey, whenever you want to come back, you just know you always have a place here. Because that's how sincere the message is. It's not a crisis post-program. It's a prevention. It's get us here before you have anything going on in your school, just so we can add to the culture that you're already building within your student body. And I woke up every day loving what I was doing. A lot of people can't do that, man. But I woke up every day knowing that when I woke up and I walked into a school, I walked into a community, I was going to enjoy everything from what you eat to what you hear, and more important, I had a message to come back and to feed you so that you can also grow in a different way as well.
That's awesome. Eric Thomas, y'all. Eric Thomas.
That's a beautiful compliment. I received it. I received all of that.
Yeah. By the way, folks, yes, we are in a garage. Okay, but it's cool because he's got his weights. If I can show you, he's got his weights. I said, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah,
that is so awesome, man. With what you're talking about with the school. Now, so we met and you were doing that. Now, talk about the transition from that lifestyle to where you are now.
So that's a two-phase transition. The first phase, I've always been a writer. I had written a book before I even was going with Rachel's Challenge and traveling and speaking on their behalf. And that was a great experience. Didn't really know my writing style at the time, but I had written a book and it was about my journey from boyhood to manhood. My motto is this: I can't spend all my time trying to encourage someone how to take care of their backyard, and my backyard is looking jacked up.
Right.
I just can't do that. So my wife and I knew very early, we have a motto, and it's going to really make it sound cheesy, where you work on the heart. You know, my wife is a cardiologist, often says she works on the heart, I work in the heart. So I knew that I wanted to be in the heart of my family.
That's not
You know,
cheesy.
some people are like, oh, really? That's so cute. I wanted to be in the heart of my family. And doing that meant coming off the road and being a stay-at-home dad. Everybody doesn't have the financial ability to do that. I'm not naive. I know that we live a very blessed life, and this house is huge. We're blessed. Yeah. So with that being said, my wife's career allows me to stay home and shepherd and grow our two daughters, Journey, who's 3.5, Justice, who's 10 months and a half. And it's one of the best decisions that we could have ever made. We knew this going in, even when we were dating, that more than likely I was going to stay home, just because her career had that longevity to it. You're not going to go to medical school and residency and fellowship 12 years just to work 3 years and say I'm done with this.
It's cardiology.
You can't do that. Yeah. So with that being said, I stayed home when I went with my daughters. Now, that first year, it was kind of funny coming from Texas. We didn't just want to just come to Oklahoma. No disrespect, but if you're a true Texan like myself, born and raised and grew up breaking horses and busting wood and hauling hay and playing college football and the whole 9 yards, you just don't cross the Red River.
You check out everything.
I'm going to check off all the boxes, man. You don't just go. You just don't show up to Oklahoma, okay?
Right,
you can go to Arkansas. You can go to Louisiana. You go to Mexico. You don't cross the Red River and go to Oklahoma.
That's right.
So when we came here, it was funny. The president of the hospital that my wife works with, they're like, well, you can have your daughter here in Oklahoma. I was like, no, you're going to let her feet touch Texas soil. And about a month after she's gotten down on her totally good, we'll make our way up yonder. Yeah. And our attitude was obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yes.
So when we got here, the reality is it was lonely. It was very isolating. I went through depression, I went through sadness, I went through ups and downs. I come off the road, traveling these highs, this feeling of purposefulness and fulfilled and connected, and this energy to pour myself into this beautiful person, but they're not giving anything back, and I'm not even sure what it is I'm pouring into them. So I had already read a couple of books when it got down to being a father, shepherding a child's heart, which is a really great book. Another book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, and really mimicked on what type of men my daughter is going to be attracted to is directly off the relationship we have, as well as her relationship with Christ. So all of these things I was going into laser focused, laser guided on not wanting to be asleep at the wheel of being a father. But what I didn't know was that it's lonely. Like a lot of people is not on the playground saying, hey, let me talk to the big tall guy with the baby. Then it's just not happening like that. Right. It's like I got my little mom group, I got my little cool hangout place here, I'm gonna keep moving. So I wanted to give something back, and I started writing this book, Joy the Journey, First Year Chronicles of a Stay-at-Home Dad, that chronicled that entire first year from when I was told we were having a baby to when she was born. And everything we learned along the way, just 1 week at a time. Wow. So I would look for little things that resonated with me to where I would write about that. And then I gave you something to feed off of. And the cool thing about it is I let the book sit on the shelf for almost a year after I wrote it, because I still was kind of like, oh, no. And then one of my friends came down from Kansas, and she was like, look, you gotta pump this thing out. Because my message was simple. I wanted to give back to fathers too. None of them will ever feel like what I felt. And then also I wanted to break that stereotype that black men are deadbeat dads, and we're not in our families, and we're not in our community, and we're not in our relationships giving our end and be all.
But what about being a single dad? I mean, I know not single dad, being a stay-at-home dad.
Right.
I know there's like that's unheard of.
So, pause, it is, but it isn't. It was kind of like this. it was like a group that I was a part of, but I didn't know that there were other members. Because once I started really promoting this book, and I started getting a lot of positive feedback, a lot of media coverage, and doing news interviews and podcasts, all of a sudden these dads started saying, well, have you ever heard of this group? Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of Dad 2.0 Summit? No, what is that? And I didn't even know they existed.
I didn't either.
And what really made me feel more comfortable was that I had a message that went right well with what was already being shared by all these other fathers. So I just came along and just like, oh, so this is what you write about also? Okay, great, this is what, and it just builds from there, iron sharpens iron. So that is kind of how I went from Rachel's Challenge, traveling and speaking, stay-at-home dad, wrote a book from home, and then started doing book signings and tours and all that.
While you were at home.
While I'm at home,
right.
you know, and if anybody know me, I am a napper. Like, I need to get my nap. I ain't no joke around. You see my golf clubs over there. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, what do you do for fun? Especially after having a kid. I sleep. Okay, that's the first thing I'm gonna want to do. And I'm not even joking. My wife will tell you right now, it's been time when she called me from work with something exciting to tell me, and I'm like, you know what time it is? If you call me between 12:30 and 2 o'clock, it's not gonna happen. My mama even knows. Baby, it's almost 12, but I just wanted to, hey, let it be quick. Let it be quick.
So let me see if I can keep game on this. All right, so at 11 o'clock, we're going to start talking about lunch. 11:30, we're going outside. For 15 minutes, it's 90. Okay, we're going to get you worked up. Come back in. That food going to hit you. You going to lay down. And I'm
going right there, right behind you. Right behind you. And now what's happening with the book and everything going well, I've transitioned to where I've started skipping nap time, man. And I'm like working out, doing that. Or I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to work out. Wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, do my meditation, do my normal routine, get my workout in. Because here's what I've learned: if it's in the morning time, I take the hit. It's on me. As if it's in the evening time, my family takes right. That's right. So I'd rather wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, work out, don't have to worry about anybody grabbing for anything, and I'm good. If I try to get it later on,
forget it. So I actually interviewed a gentleman who wrote a book, 7 Principles for Success, Dr. Mariffin, I always kill his name. He said the same thing. He's a naval doctor, said the same thing. 4 o'clock, get it in. And on top of that, now I love my daughter working out in here with me. So on Wednesdays, we typically work out together. Oh, that's cool. We'll go, and I'm full-blown stay-at-home dad. Like, we got ballet on Wednesdays. Like, straight up, I'm most of the time the only guy where we going. I've seen a few other dads along the way, but they have to work.
But I'm like, my wife will call me, not out of arrogance and cocking and be like, hey, so what we doing right now with what schedule? Because this is my job. This is my first job, my first ministry is my bride and my family. That's what I do. So I'm gonna stay home and make sure I'm engaged with it. Even now with the promotion of the book and everything, I still have to check in and be like, hey, you know, we're thinking about doing this, are you cool with that? Because I don't want her, as much as she's excited for me, to grow resentment because, like, look, you're trying to do all this stuff, but still, you know, you're not present right now. You're not present with us. So I want to be present with them, but all from home. I did the Joy in the Journey, first year chronicles of a stay-at-home dad, and, you know, the biggest lesson I have written in that book is 2 things. One is the first chapter is called A New Frontier. And it's all about understanding the best thing that I can ever do for my daughters before they see any imaginary tea party, before I change any diaper, before we played any game, was for them to see me love their mother. And I'm not saying that in a very, like, cool type way. Like, they need to see us love one another. They need to see that they came here through love and they're protected in love. Right. That gives them a natural environment to fail, to make mistakes, to push boundaries. If they walk around scared that what they may or may not do can impact this right here, then that's not going to be good for them. But if they know that mom and dad are in love with one another, we go on date nights. My daughter, I take them on dates, but they know that mama going to date. They see us pray together. They see us pray for one another. They seen us argue together. They seen us work. I'm not going to not argue from my kids. Now, we're not going to be throwing profanities and being petty or nothing like that. But they'll see 2 unhealthy, broken people figuring out how to work with one another in a way that shows respect, shows value for one another, as well as a true, genuine love for one another. I want them to see that. So whenever they encounter that, it's nothing that's throwing them off like, my parents, no, they need to see like, yeah, we did sometimes.
But at the same time, you set this precedence of what guys they want, you know, so what they see as an example. So if you coming in here, you're not even. Yeah, so I can say that even in my own 18-year-old daughter, I asked her the other day in college, I asked her, so any guys interested in you, you know? She's like, damn, why you? But I was just, when she started talking, I was listening to what she was saying about this one guy and the qualities of him. I didn't say anything, but I'm like, yeah, you didn't see that. So you saw me. So I can see, well, first of all, I'm 6'4". You ain't making that.
You ain't coming in at least 6'3". Then you might not even
but the thing, the qualities of what she was talking about, I was like, that's she just kind of described what I did.
That's exactly right. And so we just went on a father-daughter date with some friends of ours recently, and what blew my mind is that I knew right off the bat I had a great opportunity to set a scene for my daughter's journey. So I shot a little video on Instagram, showed what was getting ready to happen. Got my suit on real nice. My daughter got dressed up. Nice. I got some flowers for her. Walked over through the front yard, knocked on the front door, asked for her by name. She answered the door, presented her with flowers, said that she was beautiful, asked her mother if I could take her out on a date. She said yes, put the flowers in water, and then went out. I want her to already know before, I don't want any type of monetary thing that confuse her on murking her view on being able to see the character of a person. Because before my credit score got to be what it was right now, my wife already saw my character, right? It wasn't perfect, but she knew that some potential was there. Right. Unfortunately, sometimes what I don't want to see my daughter do is date somebody and already put them at where they see me at right now. Daddy didn't get here overnight. Daddy's gone. Mama has been along on some bumps and rides before we got here. But I want her to see the character of what can be worked with and what is there to be molded and sculpted into what can be. At 3.5 years old, I'm working with that dude. Yeah. And that's what that book, Join the Journey, is all about, with that relationship. Transitioning, I feel like one thing for sure, everybody has a book in them. I don't know if they have more than one, but they got at least one book in them. That's just me. This book that's getting ready to come out in May, I've been working on since I was maybe 23, 24.
But you know what's cool in all these books, and I hope y'all caught everything that he's done. He said book signings, writing books. He didn't mention his joining the Chamber of Commerce, in the community, traveling, still speaking, but he said his ministry is his wife, his family. But at the same time, being a stay-at-home dad, he is still contributing to the family, which is awesome. Now we're going to talk about transition to that book you've been writing.
Right. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, there are a lot of ways to contribute to the family other than just monetary, right? There's a lot of ways to pour in. So I don't think people, it's like a box. You can't limit yourself on what you can pour into your family. And a lot of it goes into consistent action and just lining that up on a daily basis. Yeah. You get that down, kids are not going to remember that we had 15 gifts at Christmas. They're not going to remember that we did this vacation. But what they will remember is that every morning my daddy did the fruits of the Spirit with me as a part of my affirmations. Right. And that's what I now start my day out with. Right. Because I've heard that my whole life is that I'm love and I'm joy and I'm peace and I'm goodness and I'm gentleness and I'm self-control. That to me has a bigger impact than getting this type of gift and all that stuff.
But I mean, it helps that you ain't saying
it helps. It's good. She like Meaty Mouse, okay? Meaty, Dr. McStuffin does go a long way. Yeah. But so I didn't realize that I was dyslexic until I was a junior in college and I graduated from high school with honors.
Y'all didn't see that coming, did you? Y'all didn't see that coming, did you?
So dyslexia, in a very bottom line, basic definition, is the way that words are heard, processed, and then verbally communicated. That's in a basic way, okay? I would narrow it down to like drinking a cup of coffee. The basic ingredient is caffeine. After the variation is going to impact everybody differently. Some people may or may not flip words backwards. Some people may or may not have issues reading. They may or may not struggle mathematically. It's different for everyone. But overall, I didn't know that I was dyslexic until I was a junior in college. So I went the majority of my life struggling with something that I didn't know had a name, and I wasn't the only one.
But here's the thing, like when I started reading your book, and you were talking about the fact that this is what part that blew my mind. Wait a minute, he was a junior in college. How did you even make it there? But it's what you said in that book. You may be dyslexic, but you probably are a genius.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Google dyslexic, and you would just be like, well, that makes sense. You know, you really are. It's not a lacking of you being smart. Mm-hmm. It's simply you learn different. We can go one way to get to work, and just because Patrick goes that way to get to work doesn't mean that's the only way to get to work. I may go a totally different way and get there. Doesn't mean that my way is wrong. Unfortunately, when it comes to dyslexia, a lot of times it's a system of learning that people have to fit into. If you don't fit into that box, then you get shifted around into special ed, or something's not right about you, you're not normal, or why you don't understand this, and blah, blah. It's not guaranteed for people to read. Reading is a luxury. People forget that reading is a luxury. It's not guaranteed. I just did a presentation last week on forgiveness I'm part of the Wausau Character Council Committee. Mm-hmm. So I just wrote a piece about forgiveness. Mm-hmm. The lady called me and she said, would you mind reading this at the city council in front of the mayor and the city members? And I said, I would not like to read that. No. I said, but I would. If I can present it, I will. She said, you don't have to read it, you can present it. Right. Because I only feel comfortable reading in front of my daughters and my wife. Mm-hmm. Because I struggle with reading. I mispronounce words. I may say coincidence, but I'm thinking consciousness, mm-hmm. but consequence comes out. You see, it's the way it all sounds. Coincidence, consonance, and whatever word I just said, all sounds the same. Mm-hmm. But the one that comes out is the one that's being looked upon that I'm meaning, but I might mean something totally different. So I struggled a lot going through school being dyslexic because I couldn't hide in the classroom. And whenever we had to read out loud, that was the most fearful thing that I was going to participate in the entire day, because I knew that if I got called on, that there was a good chance I'm about to get clowned on. Right. And I could count ahead of me how many people were reading what paragraph to which paragraph. I was probably going. I knew what day there was going to be one or the other. Right. And I would begin to molo these paragraphs like I would molo the Oscar speech. And then as I got ready to present the paragraph, I went from being 6'3.5", 225 to being like 5'2", 85. Right. Because I didn't want to be looked upon or heard or anything. Right. And then I got out the room, I was like, oh man, so glad I got that over. So that's dyslexia. There are parts of school that I loved. You know, we did a play when I was in school called Our Town. Loved it, loved acting. Still have fantasy in the back of my mind, maybe one day to come in. Loved all that type of stuff. But the reading out loud, the test taking, in Texas they had a TOS test, standardized test. If you didn't pass that, you didn't graduate from high school. I didn't pass that until it was the last semester of my senior year, and I had taken the math portion 6 times, the writing portion 7 times, and the reading portion maybe about 8 times. And I didn't know at the same time, before we even go further, that I had this ADHD thing going on also. So 43% of people that are dyslexic or ADHD, I had both. So as I'm reading a word problem, not only am I struggling with what's been read about this word problem, my ADHD comes in, and now I call up in the story of the word problem. So I don't even care that there are people around me getting up finishing the test, because I'm like, well, why would he even take? He could build a raft and go over well, that park looks nice though. And I'm just sitting there just fantasy into the story. I look up and it's like, that is crazy. I'm 6 questions in and we got a long way to go. So I'm like, I'll let you know. I had no idea that is what happens in that mind. So ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I don't like using that word disorder, it gives me a cringe, because at the end of the day, the book that I've written, To the Little Boy in Me, Learning with Dyslexia and ADHD, it's me writing back at 39 years old, saying, bro, you went through some struggles, but this is a blessing. Yeah. This is not a curse. What you got in trouble for as a kid, be quiet, sit still, stop talking, stop moving. People pay you now as an adult. Come, please share, talk.
Yeah,
you know,
it's crazy.
People pay me for that. But as a kid, you know, it was a struggle. So going through school, dyslexia was something that I often felt like, first of all, I didn't know I had a name for it. So I just knew that I felt like I was always in a dark room with a small flashlight trying to figure things out that wasn't really clicking right. I often say I felt like I was Cuba Gooding Jr. from Man of Honor, underneath the water, hands freezing, shaking, trying to put together this contraction and not knowing. Because here's the funny thing, I'll say this, Patrick. Half the words that I've said in our time together in this conversation, I can't even pronounce, I can't even spell if I saw them come across a piece of paper. See, verbally, I know what I'm saying. If I read that word, I would struggle with it if I saw it. I've been using a word recently called predicate, right? So you can be asking tomorrow, I can say something like, are you going to play golf tomorrow? Well, just predicate on what the weather looks like, right? Simple way of saying depend, right? Sometimes I use a 5-cent word or a penny word and get a 25-cent response, and that's good. Yeah. Sometimes I use a 25-cent word and get a $5 response. That's good. But I've learned over the course of time, it's better for me to stay in my lane and use a couple of penny words so I can stay connected to my true essence of a conversation.
But how did you learn?
But what I'm about to tell you. So if I saw somebody put predicate on a piece of paper right now with a couple other words, I wouldn't know that was that word. Because I could hear stuff all day and learn it in conversation and know how to apply it. But if I'm reading it, unless I understand enough of what the conversation is in context, I'm not going to understand exactly what those words are meaning. So I read very, very slow. And I would prefer to read than listen to audiobooks because audiobooks take me out of the visualization of being able to comprehend the story because I get caught up with the words to it. So it kind of goes back and forth. But in this book, I've written certain chapters. So this is before we get to the ADHD part because we kind of scattered a little bit. Before we get too far ahead, there are certain chapters I wrote about in the book. And one of the chapters, the very first chapter, is called Are You Stupid? Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the reason why is I was taking genetics for the second time as a pre-med major in college, and I was struggling. I was getting ready to bomb this test.
You're still buying by it. This man was taking genetics. Look, I don't have none of that. And by the hair on my teeth could barely make it through chemistry. So he was taking genetics.
But it was still the second time. I'm bombing.
Genetics, okay?
So I'm taking this genetics, and I would piggyback right there and just give another small detail. Abraham Lincoln once said this. Mm-hmm. I didn't try so hard because I believed in myself. I tried so hard because I didn't want to let the people down that believed in me the most. Okay, I had 3 teachers that believed in me beyond anything I ever believed in myself. Yeah. My first was my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Dodge. I just saw her last year at my book signing. She's 80 years old. Miss Dodge, she made learning fun. She had a game called Around the World when it came to academics where I would place my chair beside your chair or I would stand up. 2 + 2 = 4. If I could answer before you, I went to the next spot. If you asked before me, you got up, you went on. And at the end of the day, you got a gift at the little grab bag. It was just an eraser or something. But she made learning where you have to move around and learn. That's part of my learning style. I don't learn well just sitting in one spot. So needless to say, Miss Dodge played a pivotal role. Next was Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade was my AP chemistry teacher. What was brilliant about Mr. Wade was he didn't get amused by my humor because I began to wear many masks when I was in school. I could be the jokester, I could be the distractor, I could be the class clown, whatever, just to cover up the uncomfortableness of what I may be feeling in school. And Mr. Wade didn't buy that. So he gently, not shamefully, not embarrassed me in front of people, but he spoke really fast or mumbled, and he would often catch me when a lot of people around like, oh, you just not really applying yourself the best way I think I know you can. And he would just leave it there like that. Ooh. And I just be like, ooh, man, yeah. Cold water over that. And then the last person, she just passed away over the holidays, was Miss Simmons. And Miss Simmons was my AP English teacher, and this woman spoke into me the future. She said, when you get to college, That's all she had to say.
Yeah.
And I was done. She said, when you get to college, don't get caught up in an ego battle with professors. Give them what they need and get your A.
She wasn't talking about you might make it. She says, when you
you're in college, this is what you need. She just passed away in December. Man, this woman was a boss. Man, she was good. So I'm taking genetics for the second time, and I just said, I can't do this, man. I'm not gonna do this to myself. I put too much time on this test. So I flipped this test over and I studied everything that I've ever possibly studied in my life about genetics on the back of this test. Wrote it all out. I mean, flipped it over, wrote it on the next page, all on the back of it. A couple weeks later, the professor.
Before you said that, now in the book, you said that what I didn't see was everybody gone or?
Oh, everybody was leaving, and it was one of those things where I was still annoyed with like, how are you here again in this same spot? And these people hadn't even never taken a test before. It's the exact same test. Why is it happening all? And once again, it's so when it comes to not knowing something about myself, I became the best person at dogging myself out. What happened is she calls me to her office and I said, you know, I'm already feeling like I had wasted this lady's time because I've taken this test all over again, and I didn't want her to think that I hadn't given the effort and I hadn't put forth some hard work. So she calls me to her office and she says, J.O., here's the thing. Why didn't you write what you wrote on the back of the test on the front of the test? And I said, Dr. Flanagan, I said, I didn't understand what you were saying on the test, but I didn't want you to think that I didn't know I didn't want you to think I didn't know something. And she said, J.O., if you would have put what you wrote on the back of the test on the front of the test, you would have been the only person in the class to have aced the test. She said, I think you may have a learning disability. Well, I struggled.
Wait a second, you left one key thing out, bro.
What's that?
He was playing college football
I was
at this
playing
time.
college
He
ball.
left. So let's put that in the mindset of a college athlete in college. Now, and before we walk into this, somebody telling you have a learning. I'm a college athlete.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna get on that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tag that in a second.
Yeah.
So the thing that came up for me is I knew that I struggled with something. So before I even got accepted to college, I had to take like a couple of courses to prove that I was college material because I tested so bad on the test to get into college. But they're like, but his other grades show up so well, something's not matching up. So they gave me a couple of tests to take to make sure that I was college material, a couple of courses that summer. One was speech.
Killed it. It's dead.
Kuma Salan right here. Sign me up, right? Graduating. Kuma Salan, right?
Yeah.
Next one was like a reading remedial course, which was a little bit more difficult. But the lady who taught that course, we became friends. So whenever she would see me on campus, she would often say hello, wanted to know how I was doing, not just in a passing way, but a true, genuine conversation.
So I didn't catch it. That was in the summertime between high school and college.
That was after I graduated from high school. You went there about 5 weeks early before college football practice even started in July. Then tour day started in Abilene, Texas, in the sun, 1:15. Oh, so hot. And then we went on to practice and we won 4 conference championships, and I was like, that's another story.
Yeah.
But with that being said, so she said, I think you may have a learning disability. Going back to what you originally said, I can't have a disability. I'm a man.
Right.
I play football.
Right.
Big. Like I don't want to have a sign of weakness. So she says, you might want to look into this person. Well, the person's name on that piece of paper, her name was Miss Vicky Fair, and she was a very sincere person that I had grown to know over the course of taking that course. So I trusted her and I felt safe. I didn't just jump into her office immediately. For about 3 weeks, I literally went around, saw her door, hid, checked on her, hid, and then finally I walked in her office, shut the door behind me, and squeaked out of my chair and just said, hey, and she's like, hey, Jay, what's up? And I began to tell her what had been going on. She could tell that I was carrying a lot of shame, and she immediately just said, don't worry about test costs, any of that stuff. I got you. And I'm going to get choked up because this lady she passed away recently as well. She passed away 3 years ago, but I didn't know it until a couple months ago because we hadn't talked in a while. I actually didn't share with her about this book. But She was my first mentor, and we were still, even after I graduated from college, she was still pouring things into my life, which was great. So 3 weeks, she won all these tests on me, all these tests. 3 weeks later, I come into her office, and she is beaming, man. She had a big old smile on her face. She goes, I know what's been going on. I know what's been happening. I got it figured out. And I go, well, tell me what's going on. And she says, you're dyslexic. And I'm like, okay. I got 2 questions. And she said, okay, go. I said, 1, am I stupid? And she teared up. And she said, J.O., you are probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. You can be an astronaut if you want to. She goes, you just learn differently. She said, let me tell you how smart you are. You have innately taught yourself how to learn, as if we had given you the systems that you developed for yourself if you would have been diagnosed with dyslexia earlier. She said, you have literally taught yourself what you need to do to learn. She goes, you have no idea how smart you are. Then secondly, I said, okay, is that what Theo had on the Cosby Show? And she said, that's exactly what he had. And from there, we began a relationship. And she really took away not the fear or the shame, but made it more palatable for me to know that I wasn't alone. Miss Vicky Fair, she made it palatable for me to not know that I wasn't dumb or stupid or slow or lack of effort. But I still struggle with those tapes that I played in my house, in my head. Now, what I didn't realize is that being dyslexic, you have laws. There are dyslexia laws that you have rights to that I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know. So, for example, what changed from my studying, instead of trying to be in class and take notes, and now I'm so caught up on knowing that I just misspelled this word, I'm taking notes slow, so I'm not able to pick up as quickly as what the professor's writing on the board, and I'm missing the concept of whatever is being shared because I'm still stuck and looking around what's happening in the room. I would go to class now and I would have a note taker. This person would take notes for me that I could make copies of their notes. They had already agreed upon I'm going to be the note taker for JL, which meant that I could actually read their notes instead of reading my stuff that was all jumbled together. Next, I was able to have a tape recording class. I could replay the lecture later. So this allowed me to literally sit in class, visually listen to what the professor is saying, soaking in while maybe looking around and bookmarking things that are happening in my mind as I'm listening to this presentation. Well, somebody's taking notes and I'm knowing it's been recorded. I go back to my dorm room, I hit play, read these notes, and I visually could go back, right back to where I was in the classroom. It's all coming back in. My grades, because I was on academic probation when I had gotten that whole you need to see what's going on type thing, my grades began to soar. Now, I still don't know I have ADHD, but I know I have extra time on these tests, and I also was given, I could take an exam in a room by myself. This was a game changer. So instead of being in a room knowing that everybody around me was getting up and leaving before me, and now I'm getting distracted, now I have this clock going on, now I'm putting pressure on myself, I could go into a whole nother area where people don't even know I'm even taking the test, don't even know what's going on, and I could take my time and my grades begin to just really go higher. Now, unfortunately, it was later in my college, it was around my junior year. I wish I had this going in my freshman year. But I got off academic probation, obviously I graduated and all that jazz. But more importantly, I began to understand that I had a certain learning style, that certain things worked for me for as learning and certain things did not work for me. Pause and go to where I do now as a speaker. Writing speeches. I'm a visual person. So this little thing we're standing on right here, this is my speech podium. So when I write a speech, like the one I'm getting ready to give on Thursday, I would come in here, write a couple of words down, and put a few dots behind it. Dot, 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 dot. Literally, that's what I do. And I would go over this speech as a dry run. Just kind of getting it all out, just spewing it all out, okay? But as I'm walking, as I'm doing this, I'm visualizing the direction I'm standing, who I'm speaking to. I'm looking at these things as if they're people. I'm speaking into them because I want to visually see myself doing this as I'm presenting. Then the next time I come in, I record that same presentation I'm getting ready to give. I record it. And then after that, I will listen to it maybe once or twice. And I'm able to get up and give a 45-minute presentation, an hour presentation with no notes. all of it's been internalized in memory from I'm a visual learner.
But
and I'm a kinetic style where I like to talk and walk.
But all this time, all of what you went through, let's just be real. Had you not gone through what you had gone through up until they diagnosed you, wouldn't be able to do this.
I would never do it. But also, the pause on that point, it's by God's grace that I didn't get caught up in gangs and drugs, because truthfully, the message that I carried with myself, it would have been easier for me to numb out and check out than to lean in and determine. And it goes back to that thing I said earlier about Abraham Lincoln, knowing that 3 people believed in me more than I believed in myself. I didn't want to let these people down. I didn't want to let Miss Dodge down when I was in middle school and high school. I didn't want to let Mr. Wade down when I knew that he thought that there was something better than me to offer. And I definitely didn't want to let Miss Simmons down when I got to college. I knew that she was dependent on me to graduate. And it was cool because when I did, one of the last presentations I gave at my high school, she was alive. It was to her senior class, where she's like, I know you're going to be in town doing this book signing, but while you're in town, can you come by?
Yeah.
And I already knew if she asked you to do something, you just, I'm like, hey,
you were like, man, I'm about to.
You say nothing but a word. but now let's go to the ADHD side of things. So I began working on this dyslexia book. And I don't know really the name of it yet, but I know I'm kind of starting to work on it. Miss Fair introduced me to her friend, I think it's doctor now, Gladys Kalinowski. And she's the leading researcher and the director for dyslexia at Scottish Rite Hospital in Dallas, Texas. I was living in Dallas at the time. It was right down the street from my house. I went over and had an interview with her, and I was 30 at the time. So this is like 6 years later. And she says, I bet you make life pretty difficult on your wife sometime, huh? I was like, well, yeah, we just got married, blah, blah, blah. She goes, well, I'm thinking more because you have ADHD. And I go, what are you talking about? Well, you never been tested? And I said, no. She goes, you may want to go get tested because 43% of people that have dyslexia have ADHD. And I was like, okay.
And another one.
It got tested. I like chicken dinner. I'm a winner. Like wow. So I tried taking Adderall 3 times. Here's the reality. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, because if you're a 9-year-old kid, and I've recently heard of stories as I've gotten into this conversation where it's been a blessing to people. They've gotten a part of their life back that they didn't know that they could reach again. For me, Adderall and Ritalin was not the way to go.
Right.
One reason, because I had learned to manage it in such a way. I've learned for myself, and I'll talk about this in the book, 101 Ways to Go with ADHD Without Medicine. One of them for me is, if I'm doing something boring like expense reports, I'll put some classical music or some instrumental music on the background, and no words are going to be said, but it might be like Miles Davis or just an instrumental beat or something. And then I give myself 15 minutes to work, take a break, go outside, do something, come back, do another 15 minutes. Same way I wrote one of my books. Take 15, 20 minutes, work on it, stop, come back. And all of a sudden I might reach a flow and I knock out 45 minutes. And I'm trying to learn to give myself grace in that process instead of putting myself right up against the wall and trying to get it all done right then, to break it up and give myself pieces.
That's good.
But needless to say, so I took Adderall, and right off the bat, I felt lethargic, I felt numbed out, I felt like my words were speaking in my brain faster than they were coming out of my mouth. So that didn't work for me, especially with a speaker. How I'm gonna get up and have this pop and this response, and I'm like, look, and that thing. Next, it took away any desire I wanted to be intimate with my spouse, just because it was just such a numbing sensation for me. And then if I had any alcoholic beverage with it, it's like I had 12. It was just like, whoa, lights out, whoa, what just, and I didn't like any of that stuff. And my wife even said, she said, baby, you're like a zombie when you take that stuff. I don't like it. So I stopped taking it. And what really brought it home for me is randomly I was going through the airport in Denver one day, finishing the speaking engagement with Rachel's Challenge, and I was speaking with a guy, and it was kind of cool. I was getting ready to get seated at this restaurant. The restaurant was packed. And he said, hey, if you get seated before me, could I sit with you, and vice versa? And I said, absolutely. So we ended up sharing the table. Didn't know this guy from anyone. And we just dove into a rich conversation. And one of it came about having ADHD. And he said, J.O., and keep in mind, I just met this guy. He said, J.O., why would you cut away an essence of yourself that God has given you that works so well with who you are as a person. You go, and I'm just like, what? He's like, man, just how we are right now, just popping back and forth. That's who you are. That's part of what you bring to people. He goes, I would encourage you just to look at not doing that. And I'm not saying everybody's different, so I'm not gonna be hitting on this podium saying, don't do Adderall, don't do
Right.
But I'm just gonna say, for me, it wasn't an option. Now, is it a little bit difficult? Yeah, it's difficult at times when I know that I'm running at a 15 and I need to bring it back a little bit, when I know that I'm going into a meeting and I have to remind myself, hey, shut it down, don't speak for about 5-6 minutes, let somebody else share, because if you start talking, you can shut down this whole room because how big your personality is. I understand that it can be a little much for my wife if she hadn't had coffee yet and I want to talk about her dreams at 3 o'clock in the morning. I understand all that stuff. Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad with 2 kids under 4.
Who else you gonna talk to?
Man, ADHD is a blessing, you know? When I'm speaking to 6,000 people and I'm not sitting there behind a podium, but I'm engaged in the room, it's a blessing. So it comes with a lot of blessings, but let's go back to that little boy. That little boy didn't know that, man. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that. So things like pornography, anything that distracted me from having to have to look at myself and face the reality that there's a part of myself that doesn't feel connected to, begin to get really easier to go to.
Right.
Than understanding that there's something going on here that's out of your control. Once Vicky Fair told me that, I was dyslexic, and then once I got tested for ADHD, and these things begin to fit together in a puzzle. Now, the thing that's come the longest part, I can't change something. There's no cure for dyslexia. There's no cure for these things, and neither do I want it to be. But what I have to spend the longest amount of work on is the self-talk that I have within myself. And that's why I wrote this book, because I want to not only let this little boy know that you're gifted and you're brilliant and you're wonderfully made and you have a lot to offer. This is your testimony. This is your tribe. You now finally starting to shed off this completeness and walk into this wholeness of who God has called you and created you to be. It's your time. It's your stage. Own it, because it's who you are. That's the book right there. The other side of it is that little boy, that little girl, that parent, that teacher, that mom, that dad, that coworker, that cousin, that aunt who doesn't know, who does know, who's trying to figure out, who wants somebody they can relate to, resonate with, say, hey, that my kid is smart, they're not dumb, they're not lazy, they're not lacking passion, they're not lacking motivation, they're all okay, they are amazing, they are gifted, they just learn differently, they just have a little bit more different obstacles to overcome, but truthfully, they're better for it. They're starting to hire people now that have dyslexia, because they know that if you have dyslexia, you have mastered art of thinking outside the box to solve problems.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to look at something as a one way. You may say, hey, I've written my book through an iPhone before, dude. The first time I wrote my book, I tried to do Ernest Hemingway style. That's not me. The next time I wrote it, it was literally speaking it to my phone, sending it to my wife, and she would go through and make sure it was right. I would dictate it myself. And then another one of the books I wrote that I'm working on now, I literally do a video of myself speaking my chapter, sending it off to my assistant, and she transcribes it for me. So I'm not even writing, but I've learned what works for me.
You put a book out a week at that.
You put a book out a week. But the thing is, if you're 9 years old, you're 19 years old, you're 29 years old, and nobody's come along to tell you this thing, to hug on you, to give you a high five, to champion you, or your mom or your dad, unfortunately, if you have a parent who doesn't understand what it is that you're processing, and it is not a lack of intelligence. If they don't get that, these kids don't go to the level that they're designed to go to, because they got snuffed out that quick.
That's true.
So that's why I wrote this book.
And I look, man, I'm hearing you. I'm convicted, because I'm like, I know I've made fun of people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, that person, who knows where they are?
Yeah, who knows where they are?
They haven't learned this.
And I don't even, I said learning gift, right? Mm-hmm. Because, now granted, there are laws, right? But to me, I say, if you have rights to what it is that you struggle with, obviously take full advantage of it. But at least way do I think I'm disabled. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't think I qualify for Social Security. I don't none of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I do know that I have some challenges. I have some things that I have to work with. I have some things that if somebody say, hey, when I preach at church, the Bible is one of the few books that I feel comfortable enough reading out of, but I still don't read out of it completely with a conviction behind it. I might give the synopsis of the Adam and Eve story. For when we get into all these Israelite names and this tribe did them, let me tell you what it was about. But I'm
you could be like a ready read guy. Read.
Yeah, I call somebody, would you read this section right here for me? But the point is, it comes with challenges, but they're not meant to break me, they're meant to make me, right? And it's the same way with ADHD. So that's why I wrote To the Little Boy, learning with ADHD and just learning with Dyslexia and ADHD, because I want to give back to our students, to our families, to our communities, to people, and say, hey, your child, your daughter, you yourself is gifted, is amazing, is wonderfully made. They're not alone, they're not broken, they don't need to be fixed. If anything, it's keep them in developing who they're becoming and not allowing them to have to be broken into a system that's not designed to fix them.
That's all I got, man. That's good. Man, I appreciate that.
That's all I got.
That's good, man. Check this out. Woo! I'm already editing the video in my mind, but listen, what I need you to do is I need you to look right here in this camera right there,
okay,
and tell the people what you're doing next, how they can reach you, where they can see you, everything. Website, all.
Website. So website is the best way to go. jonathanoliveronline.com. jonathanoliveronline.com. You see my latest videos, everything that's happening. You can sign up for my newsletter. Matter of fact, if you sign up now, you will get a link to where you can sign up and get an advanced copy of my book whenever it gets ready to go live in May. That's number one, jonathanoliveronline.com. Instagram is Jonathan J.O. Oliver. You see videos, family, things of that nature. If you go to the website, you can still hit a click the link to get there. Twitter is J.O. at Stay at Home Dad or at J.O. Stay at Home Dad. Higher Learning on Facebook, Jonathan J.O. Oliver on LinkedIn. YouTube, Jonathan J.O. Oliver. Once again, website, best way to go, jonathanoliveronline.com. Here's my big goal. I want to reach Amazon bestseller with this book. I want to get people to really get it out into many hands as possible. And that goes to when you see the link come across and this book is out and it says purchase, click purchase. Don't hesitate. Click it and read it for yourself and send it to someone that you know that need it. And I appreciate you coming out here and having an opportunity, being in the garage.
Yeah. Listen, I said I was going to say this story. You got to watch him on Instagram because he's doing this chronologically with this girl.
Oh, yeah.
There's one time I died laughing. He had this thing where he wanted to cut some wood.
I needed some exercise.
He needed to cut some wood. And so he went in there and showed himself cutting the wood. And then he cut and came back. And I could tell the wood got him.
The wood got him.
The wood got on him. Because he was like, all right. Woo. Okay. Here we go.
I'll show you before we leave. I have a wood chopping pile in my backyard, right? I put Rocky 4 on with Drego, and I take my shirt off. I try to intimidate the neighbors so they know they'll come through. They're my daughter. They're gonna know that I gotta act. But I'm not gonna front, man. I went to go pick up this wood. I had a handsaw, and I thought it'd be good to work the shoulder out. And I got like 6 teeth into this thing, and my saw started kind of bowing on it a little bit. And I was like, this is not fun, man. Like, this is stupid, dude. I started jumping on the wood, hitting it with that. And then people was piling on me on Facebook and on the Stay at Home Dad group. They're like, get your man a chainsaw, get the electric one. Oh, why would he do that to me?
The joke was hilarious. I could tell that wood had got all into his business.
Yeah, I put out a private Facebook message to anybody in the neighborhood. Got a saw, I'll give you $2 for some gas, because I don't ski and I don't use chainsaws, because I don't hurt myself.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, man.
For real.
Man, appreciate you, man. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.